I've got my hands on a Pico 2W now, so I'm just testing it out, and I wanted to bring you some of the results. Now, some things work really well, but there are some bugs in the SDK which are barring some capabilities. Let me tell you about it. Hi, I'm John, your concierge to the world of the Raspberry Pi Pico, Pico 2, robotics, IoT, and other fun tech. Remember to subscribe and join the community. Remember, if you'd like this video and it helps your learning or projects, why not drop me a cash tip using the super thanks button below the video, or the other payment options in the description. I'm saving these up to get myself to open source in San Francisco next year, and I'd appreciate your help in getting me there, and of course I hope to see you there too. Now let's get going. So with my Pico 2W now arrived, we can really start to have a look at it and see what it can do. And I want to do 3 basic tests. I want to just make sure that I can get it to blink in a bare metal environment and under FreeRTOS, which is where I work a lot. Then I want to check that I can get connectivity up and running and that all works again with FreeRTOS. And finally, I want to do something real, so I'm going to call a web service. So I'm going to call a web service, both HTTP and an HTTPS web service from within the Pico 2W. Of course, I'm going to share all of the code that I'm going to talk about today, and it's all on GitHub. So let's start and have a look at Blink. So for Blink, I actually use the easiest possible approach. So I use VS Code and the Pico extension, and I told it I wanted to have a new project, and I told it that I wanted to do that as from an example, and the example that I wanted to do was based on Blink, and that I wanted it to run on a Pico 2W, and then it went and generated all the code for me. It really was as easy as that. So if we have a quick look at the code, they've written this in a generic way so they will run on both a Pico or Pico W, and it's got lots of hash if def. So basically what this is doing is setting up the CYW43 and then using the CYW43 arch to put the LED on off. Like the Pico W, the LED, onboard LED, has now moved from being on a GPIO line to actually be on the CYW43, and so we have to have that different approach to flashing it. But apart from that, it works. I ran into VS Code issues as I do from time to time, getting it to compile properly and stuff. So I ended up just doing it via my normal approach of the command line, which all worked fine, and flashed on the Pico, and yes, all good. So as you'd expect, Pico 2W Blink, absolutely easy. So here we go, the exciting demo of flashing the LED. So the FreeRTOS Blink test really was me making sure that I could build FreeRTOS reliably on this new version of the SDK, using the FreeRTOS repo created by Raspberry Pi themselves, which hasn't been updated for this latest version of the SDK 2.10. So that's quite good, I guess. We know that we don't need to worry too much about what was in FreeRTOS and making changes there. So I basically have adapted the example project that I wrote for the Pico 2 to flash the LED under FreeRTOS. The only change here is I've got a new version of Blink Agent, which is going to blink the onboard LED on a Pico W, and so of course it's setting up the CYW43 architecture and setting this LED via the particular GPIO pin on the CW43. I've put the CWY43 arch in the middle of this Blink agent. That is a really stupid and bad thing to do. Do not copy me and do that. That will get you into trouble. If you run that multiple times, your kernel will panic and it will all die and stop. So this is not the place to put that. I would always advise putting that in main, just I haven't. So do as I say, not as I do. because sometimes I'm dumb. But the important thing is that actually the configuration of this and the configuration for FreeRTOS that I've already got for the Pico 2 all works absolutely fine on this platform. So let's connect to Wi-Fi from the Pico 2W. So connecting to Wi-Fi, or at least initializing the CYW43 under FreeRTOS, which is important because this is linking a different version of the library. So we're linking the Pico CYW43 Arch LWIP sys FreeRTOS. So LWIP and FreeRTOS kernel all in that capability, so that we can actually have sockets and all of the good stuff that I normally like when I'm working with these sorts of internet applications. Now, so all I'm doing in this particular example is just basically initializing the CYW43 Arch in it. And why have I written a example that's only doing that and nothing else and is incredibly simple? Because this doesn't work. On SDK 210 as released, there is a bug, and this will fall over horribly, saying that you have basically tried to initialize one of the GPIO raw interrupts twice. You haven't. We haven't done that. There's nothing in our code that's done that. There's nothing in FreeRTOS that's done that. That's actually the SDK managing to do that itself. And it's doing that itself because it's missing a proper initialization of the stack variables entering one of the functions. And I'll show you where that code is on a slide, so you can go and manually update it while we wait for Raspberry Pi to release the update. So this is the innocuous piece of code here, and it all looks absolutely sane and perfect. But if you notice that variable there, where call, that hasn't actually been initialized to anything, and this is C, so there is no default initialization going on. So that appears to be the problem. And if you replace it with call being initialized to nulls, it all absolutely works fine. My great thanks to Peter Harper, who was able to help me diagnose this and work out what the fix should be. And hopefully this will get into the Raspberry Pi code base very soon. So let's get the Pico 2W to do some real work. And the real work I'm going to do is I'm going to call an actual web service. And I'm going to call one that's an HTTPS service, so it is secure, and it is an IP geolocation service and a public service out on the internet. This is the service that I've actually used before, and it's part of my Udemy course on how to build web service clients for the Pico W. Now, the good news is that everything I teach in that course will work on the Pico 2W as well, because we're using the same CYW43 chip and the same SDK structure. The only changes is the configuration of FreeRTOS, which needs to be slightly altered, as I've shown before on a video, for the Pico 2. So really, to check that this all worked, what I actually wanted to do was run a web service call. And I chose to use an example that I've written previously. Remember, I've got a course on how to run web service clients from the Pico W. And basically what I tried to do was update that to actually run on the Pico 2W. And by and large, this wasn't too difficult at all. I've got this nice and capably doing HTTP connections and HTTP gets, and I've tested that against one of my test servers, and indeed I've actually done a HTTPS against the IP geolocation and get IP geolocation data back. If you want to understand more about how all of this works and the details in it, I do recommend that Udemy course, because that's quite a lot of content to go through, several hours of content to understand how all of this hangs together and why it all works. But actually the code then becomes really easy. because we basically just set up a map of all of the parameters we want to pass over, and then just call a request get on the URL, and we get the data back. And that's exactly what that code is doing there, and that works pretty nicely. So to do this, we are obviously going to need configuration for FreeRTOS, and that's the same configuration we use for Blink. So that all works and that's fine. We're going to need configuration for LWIP, and that's the same configuration that I always use on my Pico W. So nothing's changed there. That's great. We also need some configuration for WolfSSL, which is what I'm using to give me the TLS libraries and that TLS security layer. Now, my approach to how I have ported that for the Pico W and does not work on the Pico 2W. And the reason for that was my approach to handling entropy, and the entropy calculations here that I was previously using, they don't work, or they didn't. My previous approach, because it's a different chip, and I was actually using some side effects on the Pico W in order to give me a reasonably good source of entropy. So for the this version, I've actually backed off and gone back to the random number generator that the SDK has, which has been significantly updated since I really actually first ported and started using FreeRTOS quite early in the Pico's life cycle. So actually things have changed significantly, and the random number generator is actually quite good now. So that's what I'm using to give me the entropy to be able to actually use that TLS library. And that all now works well. So, you know, WolfSSL doing a good job as always. So here I'm going to run it up, and my Pico 2W connects to the internet and then calls that IP geolocation service and gets back my external IP and location. Now, this was only a short video to update you on the Pico 2W launch and how I'm getting on with the new board. I hope it was useful to you. Let me know in the comments. If you'd like the video and it helps your learning or projects, why not drop me a cash tip using the super thanks button below the video or the payment links in the description. I'm saving these up to get myself to the open source conference in San Francisco next year with the other makers, and I'd appreciate your help in getting me there, and I hope to see you there too. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then please hit that like button, and please subscribe to my channel so you don't miss the next video. Goodbye for now.